Good afternoon and welcome to Boston Asian Radio and TV English Daily News today. I am your host, Lei. Here's a look at the top stories making headlines today. Asian American trailblazers honored at State House for AAPI Month. Man charged with murdering Jeremiah Oliver, Fitchburg boy who went missing in 2013. Massachusetts public housing is deteriorating. The cost to fix it could be billions. Cape Cod bridges get a promise of up to $700 million from Healey. Newly released federal reports fault Rachel Rowland's conduct as U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. Asian American trailblazers honored at State House for AAPI Month. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI Heritage Month, and on Wednesday, Gov. Maura Healey honored many Asian American trailblazers from Massachusetts at the State House. Among those recognized was Helen Chin Schlicht, known as Auntie Helen on Beacon Hill. Schlicht began working in the Speaker's office in 1950. Asians used to be very invisible, said Schlicht. That's what my mother taught me to be invisible and keep your head down and keep working. But now Asians are becoming much more visible. Susan Lee was honored. Lee was one of the first Asian women to run for city council in 2011 to represent Chinatown and South Boston before Mayor Michelle Wu. Lee lost by less than 100 votes but opened the door for women like her to run for government. There was no one who looked like me growing up to have as models that I could someday become a state rep, said State Rep Erica Weiterhoven. Man charged with murdering Jeremiah Oliver, Fitchburg boy who went missing in 2013. A 32-year-old man has been charged with killing Jeremiah Oliver, a Fitchburg 5-year-old, who went missing in September 2013, and whose body was discovered 7 months later in a suitcase off a highway in Sterling, prosecutors said. Alberto Sierra was indicted on a murder charge by a grand jury Wednesday and arrested. He also faces a charge of disinterring a body, Worcester District Attorney Joseph D. Early Juris Office said. Sierra is slated to be arraigned at 9 a.m. Thursday in Worcester Superior Court, prosecutors said. Sierra was not in custody when he was arrested Wednesday, said Scott J. Croteau, a spokesperson for Early's office. Further information about the arrest was not available, he said. Previously, Sierra had faced charges of kidnapping and assaulting Jeremiah, but prosecutors dropped those charges so double jeopardy does not attach or prevent further possible prosecution for the homicide. Massachusetts public housing is deteriorating. The cost to fix it could be billions. Decades ago, Massachusetts went above and beyond when it came to housing its poorest residents, building tens of thousands of smaller public housing apartments on its own dime as a supplement to the larger complexes that were funded by the federal government. It's been downhill ever since. After that initial infusion of funding that financed the construction, the state has done little to maintain its 43,000 units of public housing, leaving hundreds of properties in a chronic state of disrepair, with even everyday maintenance such as replacing broken floor tiles or rodent control falling to the wayside. The 70,000 people who call these places home are paying the price. Children with elevated levels of lead in blood, one resident who fell on a neglected staircase and broke her arm, a rodent problem so bad a family's young children sleep in a top bunk because rats scurry across the floor at night. Cape Cod bridges get a promise of up to $700 million from Healey. After Massachusetts struck out on billions of dollars in federal grants to replace the two aging Cape Cod bridges, Governor Maura Healey is promising to double the state's financial commitment to the project up to $700 million, as the state tries to lure the federal money needed to realize the long-gestating plans. Healey's pledge marks a major escalation in the state's willingness to devote its own cash to the estimated $4 billion replacement of the Sagamore and Bourne bridges, the 88-year-old arching structures that traverse the Cape Cod Canal and are the only roads on and off the peninsula. The state had previously committed $350 million specifically for the project. Healey aides told that her administration intends to allocate up to $350 million more from money the state is authorized to borrow for an array of infrastructure and transportation projects. Newly released federal reports fault Rachel Rowland's conduct as U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. In her 16-month tenure as U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Rachel Rawlins repeatedly committed ethical breaches and misused the power of her office, in particular attempting to influence the 2022 election for her successor as Suffolk District Attorney, according to two federal investigations that led her to abruptly announce her resignation this week. The two government watchdog investigations began in July 2022, after Rawlins mingled with Democratic insiders at a fundraiser and photo op with Jill Biden in Andover, violating guidelines her own general counsel had established to avoid violating the Hatch Act. The federal law bars government employees from engaging in partisan political activity while on duty in a federal facility or using federal property and sets limits on fundraising and other activities. Stay tuned for more updates on Boston news as it develops.